Hey, it's KR here of D&D Homebrew, and today, as the title suggests, we're going to have adventures in farmland in your fantasy RPG setting, or any kind of setting where there's agricultural farms. And the reason I say this is sometimes GMs, if you have wilderness campaigns, you have a tendency to ignore the farmland right around a town or city, because first of all, people even talk about what's there. But secondly, the players just move through there, and there's very little of interest. Oftentimes we think because monsters wouldn't necessarily go there, they'd have the town guard or the high-level PC types would come out and harass them because, of course, they need the farmers to produce the food and the various, items that they can work, leather goods or whatever the things are that the city needs, and so they'll protect them. But the thing is, the farmland is kind of between the town or city adventures or intrigues or whatever, and then out in the wilderness where there's lots of nasty monsters and lost temples and cities and all that. But there's a lot going on there because there's people there and there's history there as well. So in order to think about what kind of adventures, the classic one is where something, either some creature, Ankeg is the classic, or other creatures are raiding some farms or some homesteads. And for whatever reason, let's just say, city officials or whatever are ignoring this or not paying attention. Now, that in and of itself is a separate adventure. But the players take it upon themselves to come out, wait on the farm, and see who's attacking. Save the farm. Of course, the farmer has very little to give them, except maybe some information as to why the city is harassing, why the city's ignoring their pleas for help. Maybe there's someone in the city that wants their land. So it's making it so that they can't stay. That's a classic, right? I want that land. Is just the land itself, or is there something on there? Oh, there's rumors of an old mine that used to be here. It's right at the edge of the mountains. It's how the mine works, right? Mine does. So that's a classic. You're protecting some homestead from some attack. And then why is it that, one, it's being attacked, and two, the city isn't doing stuff? Another is the history of the land upon which a farm or series of farms is situated. And the digging of a well is the classic example of going too deep, breaking into some underground chamber or releasing something. Suddenly the crops are all dying, the animals are, either dead or the whole farm. No one's heard from Farmer Smith in, weeks, and you go out there and they're all zombies or something, right? Because they've broken into some cursed tomb and they've all been infected by the zombies or something like that. But the activities of the farm, they're digging, they're plowing, and they disrupt some ancient, like there was a druid there, buried there long ago. Again, I'm just spitballing here, but some activity of the farm itself has released something that's causing a problem. And the players either just stumble across this, hear about it, however you want to do it. And because again, the well is the classic. That's supposedly how Pompeii was discovered. Someone digging a well, and they broke through and found an underground Roman chamber in the 16th century, and on we went. So think about how the activities of agriculture could induce some kind of adventure idea. Another interesting aspect is to use farming rituals to then introduce something, mysterious, out of the ordinary, dangerous, or whatever. One of the things, I grew up in the Midwest, and they would make corn mazes, right? A farmer would have a certain area of his land, and he would plow out a whole maze, and then people would come by, again, these festivals and stuff, and go into the maze, and sometimes it'd take you a long time. Of course, you could always try to break through in a corn maze, but again, especially got frustrated. All right, so they set up this corn maze. They've always done it, and people start disappearing. They go into the corn maze, and they never come out. What's going on? And again, this relates back to, in many ways, where is this, the land that this corn is on? Has it always been here? This is always where we've done the maze, right? Or this is the land you weren't supposed to do the maze on. Farmer Smith said, I don't care about those old legends. I'm making the maze right here, and bad things happen. And people are being transported somewhere, The disappearing is the classic with a maze, because the idea behind a maze is not ever being able to find your way out. But they could also go in there and become dazed and confused, and not, like, not zombies per se, but just in some kind of stupor that they don't come out of, glazed eyes or something, or horrified. Because the other thing is, people are going in there and they're finding their bodies with a horrific expression of total terror on their face. Something at the heart, always at the heart of the maze. So no one wants to go in there. Stories are going about, and the players come along. Are they going to go into this maze and see what it's got? And you have other things like the maypole dancing, where they do this every year. They do some dance around this maypole, and the local authorities shut it down, or people don't believe, or there's some priest or something that says this is not to our gods, or something like that. And they don't do it, and there's a blight, and the crops aren't growing, or something like that. Or someone's manipulating the maypole dance, or any of these festivals, and these are all sort of, pagan-esque festivals to the various nature gods. And of course, you've got multiple gods in a typical fantasy RPG setting. So you're going to have you're going to have festivals that something has gone wrong, because when you have a festival and you honor the gods, I feel like they come closer to the material plane. This is their connection. And this is an opportunity for rival gods who have cultists or, adherents on the material plane to come in and mess with it. I think that's an interesting idea. And there have been rumors that at this year's Maypole Festival, something bad's going to happen. I just know it, right? And the players hear about this. That's something they can easily resist. And then whatever the storyline is in there's a reason that they're trying to interrupt it, this cult. Again, let's say there was a baptism. Again, you don't want to necessarily hurt babies or kids, but you see what I'm saying? Like, something has been erupted, or a child was baptized and there's something wrong. This child looks strange, or the children are all acting strange. What was the one? There was a famous movie where the kids all get these powers. That kind of thing. All of a sudden, the children, after a certain age in this farm area, because the soil has some taint to it, or they plowed up something. I mean, again, you could just go on and on, because they're producing food that people eat. And if the land has some curse or something that's been uncovered or has been reactivated, this is how it appears in the time of the players, and they find out about it and have to investigate. This is one I used a long time ago. These players came across this farmland. There's this series of farms in a little village, and everyone was laying, they had fallen asleep, literally wherever they were at this moment. They were all, and they couldn't be roused. And then after like an hour, they woke up and they were fine, and they didn't remember being asleep, and they were just like, what are you talking about? Whatever. So the players hung around, and every day at this time, this happened in this village. And eventually, the players decide, I don't want to go in because I might use it now. I'm thinking about this from long ago. Let's just say that the players had to investigate why are they falling asleep? What is happening while they're asleep? Is it magically induced? Whatever. But that's the mystery. And you've got a small enough area, these little farming communities in this little village or hamlet even, and everyone within this area. Now there's it's not geographic necessarily. It's who knows each other, the relationships with each other, who has descended from certain. See, I'm revealing some things I don't necessarily want to. But there is a connection because they all live around here. And what happens during that hour? The players are observing. They don't see anything. They detect magic about everywhere. So this is a mystery that occurs. And this is a similar thing to the classic ghost type mystery. These are perfect for agricultural areas because you have feuds between farmers, you have accidents that occur, you have people that they were killed. Maybe it's by some creature that came in and killed them, whatever. But there's all sorts of opportunities to have haunted areas. Again, whatever you think about ghosts, I don't really run them the way they have them in the books. I don't care if it's a lot of the stats, whatever. But the point is that these people have potentially lived here a long time. When you drive along on a highway or you go on a back road and you see a farmhouse from 100, 200 years ago, or depending on where you live, or in Europe, hundreds of years, in the East Coast of the United States too. That's a long time. and how many families have lived at this place, and what are the things that have happened here. So farmhouses and things, it's not like, but again, in Europe, of course, you have cities that have been around forever, so they're more ripe for ghosts, I suppose. But again, and that's the classic medieval thing where people stay in a place for hundreds of years. So I think that, again, and it's just this, it could be the most bucolic, beautiful, everything you think of as a wonderful farm environment. And there's some story, something hideous, some betrayal, some murder occurred here. And it has caused a ghost to arise. Another thing to always remember, in a farming type community, there is a bond with nature, right? The rain has to come in order to, water the crops, keep the animal, and the crops keep the animals alive, and the animals provide all sorts of bounty in addition to the crops. So the weather, and again, when you have a world with spirits of, gods that, command different agricultural, both nature and agriculture itself, it's ripe for instance, I think I had this thing where this farmer went into this dry area and he had this magic plow. And when he plowed this area, even if there was no rain, crops would grow. And no one understood the mystery of this. And he offered to plow other people's land. It became this big thing. And then the plow was stolen by someone. So the farms of the town were going to die without this magic because it just didn't get enough rain here. So again, that connection to nature. So the players had to go and they had to find the plow. And it's a long story, right? Well, who stole it? And what was the magic? And what was the bargain that this farmer, this long time ago, right, that he had made and all this stuff? There was a reason that it was taken. But that connection to nature, if it doesn't rain, the farms, they don't survive. Right? If it gets too cold, there's an early frost, kills all the crops, depending on the sort of crops. If you have hardy ones, maybe not. So unusual weather, because they grow things depending on what the weather is like in this area. So if that changes at all, they're in serious trouble. So that kind of connection can create, in a world where there are magical and divine interactions with the natural world that can change it, that can be really interesting. And again, before I leave, a shout out to my Patreon supporters. Love you guys. Love making stuff for you. And love to hear about you got agricultural, farming encounters. I know it sounds so exciting, but I'm sure you've got some stories for them. Like and subscribe. And of course, most importantly, my friends, keep playing an RPG game, whichever one you choose, and tell somebody else about it.